The year was 2135 when the massive ship appeared in Earth's orbit. It happened on a Tuesday morning, causing panic across the globe. News stations broadcast the same images over and over, a silver vessel that stretched nearly 3 miles from end to end, hovering silently above the Atlantic Ocean. Daniel Hayes watched from NASA's command center, his coffee growing cold in his hands. At 42, the former military engineer had seen many strange things, but nothing like this. "They're hailing us on all frequencies," said a young technician, her voice shaking. Daniel nodded. "Put them through." The alien that appeared on screen had blue-gray skin and 4 eyes positioned around a narrow head. It spoke perfect English. "People of Earth, I am Ambassador Krell of the Galactic Alliance. We come in peace and wish to establish diplomatic relations with your world." What followed was a whirlwind of activity. World leaders gathered. The United Nations held emergency sessions, and Daniel, with his unique background in both space technology and military systems, found himself appointed as humanity's technical liaison to the aliens. 3 days later, Daniel stood in a converted hangar at Edwards Air Force Base, watching as Alliance representatives unloaded crates from their shuttle. The main alien delegation included members from 6 different species, but Daniel's attention focused on the Naxians, standing 7 feet tall with tough, leathery skin and sharp teeth. The Naxians served as the Alliance's military arm. Their commander, Zix moved with the confidence of someone who had seen countless battles. "Lieutenant Hayes," Zix said, not bothering to hide his assessment of the human. "I understand you will be evaluating our technology exchange." Daniel nodded. "That's right. I'm here to understand what you're offering and explain what we might contribute." The Naxian made a sound that might have been a laugh. "Contribute? Your species has barely left its own solar system. The Alliance has existed for 50,000 years. We're quick learners," Daniel said with a polite smile. The demonstration began an hour later. Alliance officials showed off various technologies: medical equipment that could heal wounds instantly, agricultural systems that could grow food in any environment, and communication devices that worked across vast distances. Without delay, then came the military technology. Zix personally demonstrated a handheld energy weapon. "This standard-issue blaster can penetrate any armor your military currently possesses," the Naxian explained, firing at a steel target. The beam cut through it like butter. Daniel studied the weapon carefully. "May I?" he asked, holding out his, and Zix hesitated, then passed it over. "Be careful. It's not a toy." The weapon felt surprisingly light. Daniel examined the power cell, the targeting system, and the cooling mechanism. Something about the design struck him as oddly inefficient. "This targeting system," Daniel said. "It seems to require recalibration after every 3rd shot." Zix 4 eyes blinked in surprise. "That's correct. How did you know that?" "The alignment mechanism shifts slightly from the recoil. It's a small design flaw, but it means you lose accuracy unless you adjust." Daniel turned the weapon over. "And the power distribution isn't optimal. You could probably get 20% more output with a different configuration." The room fell silent. The Alliance representatives exchanged glances. "That's not possible," Zix finally said. "Our weapons are the result of thousands of years of development." Daniel handed the blaster back. "Just an observation." Later that day, during a break in the presentations, a tall Naxian official pulled Ambassador Krell aside. Their voices carried to where Daniel stood near a refreshment table. "The humans spotted design flaws within minutes of handling our weapons," the official said. "This is concerning." Krell's 4 eyes narrowed. "What are you suggesting?" "Limited access only. No military technology beyond what's necessary for basic protection. They're more adaptable than we anticipated." Daniel pretended not to hear as he poured himself a cup of water. When he returned to his temporary office, he found Olivia Martinez waiting for him. At 35, Olivia was one of NASA's top propulsion engineers. "How was the show and tell?" she asked, legs crossed as she sat in his visitor chair. Daniel closed the door. "Interesting." Very interesting. He lowered his voice. They have amazing tech, but some of it isn't as advanced as they think. What do you mean? Their military technology. There are flaws, inefficiencies, things we could improve upon with our current knowledge. Olivia raised an eyebrow. And how did they take your observations? Not well. Daniel sat down. I think they've decided to restrict our access. They're afraid of us. Olivia sounded amused. No. Daniel shook his head. They're underestimating us, and that's much better. They see us as primitive, but curious, harmless. Olivia's smile faded. That's a mistake. A big one, Daniel agreed. 1 week later, the Alliance formally invited Earth to join as a protectorate species, a junior member with limited rights and responsibilities. The terms included technology exchanges, but carefully controlled ones. Military technology would be shared only in limited ways, for Earth's protection. At the signing ceremony, Daniel stood with other technical advisors, watching as the Secretary General signed the agreement. Ambassador Krell looked pleased. Commander Zix-Tool looked bored. As part of the new arrangement, the Alliance announced that a small human delegation would be permitted to tour their flagship, the Celestial Harmony, as a gesture of goodwill. Lieutenant Hayes, Zix-Tool approached after the ceremony. You will be joining the tour, I presume? Daniel nodded. Wouldn't miss it. Try not to touch anything, the Naxian said with what passed for a smile. Some of our systems are sensitive. I'll be on my best behavior, Daniel promised. That evening, Daniel met with Olivia and several other engineers at a secure facility. The room had been swept for listening devices, and all electronic equipment was left outside. The Alliance is hiding something, Daniel said once everyone was seated. Their technology is advanced, yes, but it's stagnant. They haven't innovated in centuries, maybe longer. How can you tell? Asked Sam Wilson, a weapons specialist. Everything they've shown us is perfectly functional but lacks creativity. It's like they found a solution that works and stopped looking for better ones. Olivia nodded. I noticed the same thing with their propulsion systems. Efficient, but nowhere near what they could be. So what's our plan? Sam asked. Daniel smiled. We observe, we learn, and we prepare. For what? Someone asked. For the moment they realize they need us more than we need them. Daniel looked around the room. Because that moment will come. And when it does, the galaxy is going to learn why you should never underestimate humans, especially when it comes to military technology. As the meeting ended, Daniel couldn't help but feel excited about the upcoming tour of the alien flagship. The Alliance thought they were being generous by giving humans a glimpse of their advanced civilization. They had no idea they were opening the door to their own technological revolution. And all because they made one simple mistake. They let humans near their military tech. 6 months passed since Earth joined the Galactic Alliance as a protectorate species. Humans were slowly being integrated into Alliance operations, but always under careful supervision. Captain Susan Miller stood on the observation deck of the Alliance battlecruiser Eternal Vigilance. At 38, she had spent 15 years in the United States Navy before being selected for the human delegation to the Alliance. Her official title was Observer, but everyone knew she was really there to learn and report back to Earth's Joint Military Command. The stars stretched out before her, more vivid than she had ever seen from Earth. The ship moved through space at speeds that would have seemed impossible a year ago. Yet Susan wasn't thinking about the view or the technology. She was thinking about waste. Beautiful, isn't it? Said a voice beside her. Commander Zix-Tool joined her at the viewport. Breathtaking, Susan agreed. Thank you for allowing me to join this patrol mission. The Naxian made a dismissive gesture. Alliance protocol. All new species must be shown our defensive capabilities, although I must admit, you humans have shown more interest in our military operations than most. Susan smiled politely. We're naturally curious. What she didn't say was that she had spent the last 3 weeks watching the Alliance's battle drills and finding them shockingly rigid. Their formations never changed. Their responses to simulated attacks followed exact patterns. Any military force that spent 10 minutes studying these patterns could predict every move. I've been meaning to ask, Susan said carefully. Does the Alliance ever use randomized formation shifts during engagements? Zixtul looked at her with all four eyes. Why would we? Our formations are mathematically optimized for maximum firepower. Distribution? Of course, Susan nodded. Just wondering. Later that day, Susan returned to her quarters and made careful notes about everything she had observed. She encoded them in a personal diary system that appeared to be simple personal reflections. Alliance security had checked and approved it, never realizing that certain phrases and word combinations formed a sophisticated military report. On the engineering deck, Paul Johnson was having a similar experience. The 40-year-old engineer had been granted limited access to study the Alliance's propulsion systems. His guide, a six-limbed alien named Vrex, explained the basics of their faster-than-light drive. The quantum fold drive creates a bubble of altered spacetime around the vessel, Vrex said, pointing to a glowing blue core. It's been the standard for Alliance ships for the past 8,000 years. Amazing, Paul said, genuinely impressed. And the power consumption? Approximately 30% of the ship's total output during standard operation. Paul nodded, but his mind was already racing. Based on the configurations he could see, simple modifications to the field emitters could reduce that to maybe 18%. He kept his face neutral as he asked more questions, building a mental model of the entire system. In his quarters that night, Paul sketched designs on a paper notebook. The Alliance allowed this primitive form of record-keeping, considering it harmless. They didn't realize that Paul's doodles were actually precise technical diagrams of modified engine components. Meanwhile, in the communications center, Amanda Wright was making her own discoveries. The 34-year-old specialist had been assigned to learn Alliance communication protocols, ostensibly to help improve Earth's ability to communicate with Alliance vessels. Our quantum entanglement network allows instantaneous communication across the galaxy, explained her supervisor, a jellyfish-like alien named Floor. Amanda nodded politely while examining the encryption algorithms on the display. She was shocked to find that Alliance encryption was actually less sophisticated than what Earth had developed. The aliens relied on the sheer complexity of their quantum systems rather than elegant mathematical solutions. How do you prevent interception by hostile forces? She asked. Floor's tentacles waved dismissively. The Voidborn Collective lacks the technological sophistication to breach our security. Their hive mind approach limits creative problem-solving. I see, Amanda said, thinking of at least 3 ways Earth's encryption methods could strengthen the Alliance's security. That evening, the 3 humans met in Susan's quarters, which they had verified was free of surveillance. Alliance security was thorough but predictable, and the humans had quickly learned how to create private conversation spaces. They're stuck, Susan said quietly. Thousands of years of doing things the same way has killed their innovation. Paul nodded. Their engine design hasn't changed in millennia. I could boost efficiency by 40% with materials we have on Earth right now. Same with their communications, Amanda added. Their encryption is ancient by our standards. Susan leaned forward. We need to share what we're learning, but carefully. We can't violate any explicit restrictions. The coded messages are working, Amanda confirmed. Earth is receiving everything we send. They're building a complete picture of Alliance capabilities and limitations, Paul added. Their meeting was interrupted by a sudden alarm. Red lights flashed throughout the ship and a mechanical voice spoke in the Alliance common language. Alert. Hostile contact detected. All personnel to battle stations. The 3 humans rushed to their assigned positions. Susan reached the bridge, just as Commander Zixtul was receiving reports. Voidborn scout ship, an officer reported. It appeared from behind the moon of the 4th planet. They're charging weapons. Zixtul issued orders in the calm, methodical way of the Naxians. The ship moved into a standard defensive position. Susan watched as the tactical display showed the enemy vessel circling around, exactly as she would have done to exploit the blind spot in the Alliance formation. The first hit rocked the ship. Damage reports flooded in. Shield generators 3 and 4 are offline, an officer reported. Engine power at 60%. 2 more hits followed before the Alliance ship could return fire. Their shots missed as the Voidborn vessel executed a simple evasive maneuver. "They're retreating," someone called out. The enemy ship disappeared into faster-than-light speed. The bridge fell silent as damage reports continued. Commander Zixtal looked grim. "Send distress signals," he ordered. "We need repairs before we can pursue." Susan watched the aftermath with a sinking feeling. The damage was severe. Alliance reinforcements were days away. And based on what she had seen of Voidborn tactics, this was just a scouting mission. The main attack force would not be far behind. She caught Paul's eye as he entered the bridge, with a damage assessment. They both knew what was coming. The Alliance would need help, and soon they would have to decide whether to accept human input or face destruction. The moment they had prepared for was approaching faster than anyone had expected. The Eternal Vigilance drifted through space, wounded and vulnerable. Emergency lights cast an eerie red glow throughout the ship's corridors. Repair crews worked frantically, but progress was slow. Commander Zixtal stood in the damaged engine room, his 4 eyes blinking rapidly as he reviewed the reports. The news wasn't good. The ship's main power core was operating at 30% capacity. The shields were barely functional, and long-range communications were completely offline. "How long until we can move again?" he asked the chief engineer. The 6-limbed alien shook his head. "At least 4 days, Commander. The power distribution system took heavy damage." "We don't have 4 days," Zixtal said sharply. "The Voidborn will return, and they won't send just 1 scout ship next time." "I understand, sir, but the repairs require time. We follow the standard procedures. Perhaps there are non-standard procedures worth considering." The voice came from behind them. Zixtal turned to see Susan Miller standing in the doorway, her face calm but serious. "This is not your concern, Captain Miller," Zixtal said. "You are an observer, nothing more." Susan stepped forward. "With respect, Commander, my ship is in danger too. I might have some suggestions that could help." The Naxian commander stared at her, conflict clear on his alien face. Alliance protocol strictly limited human involvement in military technology. But the situation was dire. "What suggestions?" he finally asked. "I've been watching your repair teams. They're working in sequence following standard protocols. On Earth, in emergency situations, we use parallel processing techniques." "Explain." "Instead of fixing systems in order of importance, we repair multiple systems simultaneously, then connect them once they're operational. It's faster, though. It requires more coordination." The chief engineer looked skeptical. "Our procedures have been refined over thousands of years, and they work well under normal circumstances," Susan agreed. "But this is not normal. We have hours, not days." Zixtal was silent for a long moment. Then he nodded. "Show us." An hour later, Susan had reorganized the repair teams into smaller, focused groups, each working on different critical systems. Paul Johnson had joined her, bringing his own expertise to the power distribution problem. "The bypass you're installing won't handle the power load," Paul told an Alliance engineer. "But if we reroute through these secondary conduits, we can get enough power to the shields and engines." "That's not in the specifications," the alien protested. "No, but it will work," Paul said firmly. "Sometimes you have to improvise." The alien reluctantly followed Paul's suggestion. To everyone's surprise, the power levels began to stabilize. Meanwhile, Amanda Wright was working on the communications system. The quantum entanglement array had been damaged beyond repair, but she had another idea. "We can modify the standard radio transmitters to boost their range," she explained to her team. "It won't give us instant communication like the quantum system, but it will let us send a message to the nearest Alliance outpost." "Radio waves?" A jellyfish-like technician waved its tentacles in dismissal. "That's primitive technology." "Sometimes primitive works when advanced fails," Amanda replied calmly. "And we can encrypt the signal using a method that should confuse the Voidborn." Commander Zixtal moved from station to station watching the humans work. He saw how they quickly adapted to problems, finding creative solutions that often ignored standard procedures. It was chaotic, unpredictable, and strangely effective. 4 hours later, the ship's condition had improved dramatically. The shields were at 60% capacity. The engines had enough power for slow movement, and Amanda's modified communication system had successfully sent a distress signal. "We can reach the repair station at Outpost 47, Paul told the commander. "It will take 3 days at this speed, but it's our best option." Sixtol studied the star chart. "That course takes us dangerously close to the Kelvar Nebula. The Voidborn often hide there." "We've thought of that," Susan said. "Amanda has developed a way to mask our energy signature, and I've worked out some evasive patterns that should help us avoid detection." The commander's 4 eyes narrowed. "These suggestions go well beyond your role as observers." "Yes," Susan admitted. "But right now, our survival matters more than protocol." After a tense silence, Zixtul nodded. "Proceed with your plan, Captain Miller." The damaged battlecruiser limped away from the ambush site, moving slowly toward the distant repair station. The humans' modifications held, though the engineering crew watched nervously as the improvised systems operated outside normal parameters. On the second day of their journey, the ship's sensors detected movement. "3 Voidborn vessels approaching from the nebula," the sensor officer reported, his voice tight with fear. "Attack formation." The bridge crew froze. In their damaged state, they couldn't survive an encounter with 3 enemy ships. "Implement Evasion pattern Miller 7, Susan said quickly. When no one moved, she added, "Commander?" Zixtul hesitated only briefly. "Do as she says." The helmsman input the unusual course correction Susan had designed. The battlecruiser began a series of seemingly random movements, changing speed and direction in ways that defied standard tactics. On the tactical display, they watched as the Voidborn ships adjusted their course, clearly confused by the erratic movement. "They're used to our standard evasion patterns," Susan explained. "This breaks all the rules they expect us to follow." "Maintain course and speed," Zixtul ordered. "Continue evasive maneuvers." For tense hours, the damaged Alliance ship played a deadly game of hide-and-seek with the Voidborn patrol. Susan's unpredictable tactics, combined with Amanda's signal-masking technology, kept them just out of the enemy's grasp. Finally, the sensor officer reported, "The Voidborn ships are breaking. Off pursuit. They're returning to the nebula." A cheer went up from the bridge crew. Even Zixtul allowed himself a small gesture of relief. "It seems we have avoided detection," he said. "Your unconventional methods have proven effective, Captain Miller." Susan nodded respectfully. "Sometimes being unpredictable is the best strategy." Later that evening, Zixtul called the 3 humans to his private chambers. His expression was unreadable as they entered. "What you have done today violated numerous Alliance MA protocols," he began. Susan tensed, preparing for a reprimand, but then the Naxian continued, "And saved this ship and everyone aboard." "We only did what was necessary," Paul said. "Perhaps," Zixtul acknowledged, "but it raises questions. Questions I will have to address with Alliance Command when we reach the outpost." "What kind of questions?" Amanda asked. The commander's 4 eyes seemed to focus on something far away. "In 8,000 years, the Alliance has developed careful procedures for everything. We follow them without question. Yet in a crisis, 3 humans with minimal training on our technology found solutions we could not. Different perspectives can be valuable," Susan suggested carefully. "Yes," Zixtul agreed, "and dangerous. The Alliance Council will need to decide what to do about the human perspective." As the humans left the commander's quarters, Paul whispered, "I think we just changed the game." Susan nodded. For better or worse, they're starting to see what humans can do. "And what happens next?" Amanda asked. "Next," Susan said, "we prepare for the real test. Because this was just a small crisis. The real war with the Voidborn is coming, and when it does, the Alliance will need more than just our suggestions." 2 months after the incident with the Eternal Vigilance, the Galactic Alliance faced its greatest threat in centuries. The Voidborn Collective had launched a massive offensive against 3 Alliance worlds simultaneously. Reports of casualties flooded in as the Alliance fleet struggled to respond. Daniel Hayes stood in the grand chamber of the Alliance Council on their capital world, Nexus Prime. Massive windows revealed the glittering cityscape outside, but no one was admiring the view. The room buzzed with tense conversations as representatives from 50 species discussed the dire situation. Ambassador Krell addressed the emergency session, his 4 eyes blinking rapidly in distress. The Voidborn have developed new tactics. Our standard defensive formations are failing. We have lost 37 vessels in the past week alone. A holographic display in the center of the room showed the battle zones. Red markers indicating Voidborn ships were pushing back the Blue Alliance defenders at every front. Daniel watched silently from the human delegation's position at the back of the chamber. Beside him stood Captain Susan Miller, recently returned from her eventful mission on the Eternal Vigilance. Commander Zixtool had filed a detailed report about the humans' unconventional solutions during the crisis, which had caused considerable debate among Alliance leadership. "The Voidborn are adapting faster than we can respond," said the Defense Minister, a tall, crystalline being. "Our tactical computers cannot predict their new patterns." "Perhaps," said a voice from the side of the chamber, "it is time to consider unconventional approaches." All eyes turned to Commander Zixtol. The Naxian stood tall, his scarred face showing no emotion. "Explain," demanded the council leader. "The human observers aboard my vessel found solutions our own engineers could not," Zixtol said. "They think differently, perhaps dangerously so, but in this crisis that different perspective might be exactly what we need." Murmurs filled the chamber. Daniel caught Susan's eye and nodded slightly. This was the moment they had been waiting for. The council leader's voice cut through the noise. "Are you suggesting we give these primitives access to our military technology? The protocols are clear." "The protocols may cost us this war," Zixtool interrupted. "I have seen what humans can do with limited access. Imagine what they might accomplish if we removed those limitations." Heated debate erupted throughout the chamber. Some representatives supported the idea while others vehemently opposed it. Daniel remained silent, waiting. Finally, Ambassador Krell raised his hands for silence. "These are unprecedented times," he said gravely. "Let us hear from the humans themselves." Daniel stepped forward, his heart racing but his voice steady. "The Alliance has existed for thousands of years, developing technologies and procedures that have served you well," he began. "But the Voidborn are exploiting the predictability of your responses. You need innovation, adaptation, and unconventional thinking. And you believe humans can provide this?" asked the Defense Minister skeptically. "We've studied your systems for months," Daniel replied. "Even with limited access, we've identified numerous ways to improve your weapons, shields, and tactics. Give us full access and we can help turn the tide of this war." Silence fell over the chamber as the council members considered his words. The holographic display continued to show Alliance forces in retreat across all fronts. After hours of closed-door deliberations, the council reached its decision. In a historic and controversial move, they granted humans full access to Alliance military technology for the duration of the crisis. "Do not make us regret this," the council leader told Daniel as the session ended. "We won't," Daniel promised. The next week passed in a blur of activity. Daniel led a team of human engineers at the Alliance's primary research facility. They worked day and night, modifying weapon systems, redesigning shield configurations, and developing new tactical programs. "The targeting system's response time can be cut in half," Daniel explained to a group of Alliance weapons specialists. "And the power output can be increased by 30% if we reconfigure these emitters." The alien engineers watched in a mixture of fascination and alarm as the humans made changes to designs that had remained unchanged for centuries. Across the facility, Susan Miller worked with Alliance tactical officers. "Your formations are too predictable," she explained. "We need to introduce controlled randomness and asymmetrical response patterns." "But our combat computers are programmed for specific formations," protested an officer. "Then we'll reprogram them," Susan said firmly. Meanwhile, Amanda Wright led a team that completely overhauled the Alliance's communication systems. This hybrid encryption method combines quantum security with algorithmic variations, she explained to bewildered Alliance communications experts. The Voidborn won't be able to crack it because it changes constantly. Paul Johnson focused on the fleet's propulsion systems, implementing the modifications he had designed months earlier. These changes will give your ships 20% more speed and maneuverability, he told the chief engineer, the difference between escaping and being destroyed. Some Alliance personnel resisted the changes, clinging to tradition and established protocols. Others embraced the human innovations, excited by possibilities they had never considered. Commander Zix Tool visited the facility regularly, observing the humans' progress. Your people work quickly, he noted to Daniel during one visit. We've had a lot of time to think about these improvements, Daniel replied. And necessity is driving us now. Indeed. The Naxian's 4 eyes studied him carefully. You were ready for this moment. Daniel met his gaze steadily. We prepared for the possibility that you might need our help someday. After 3 weeks of frantic work, the upgraded Alliance fleet was ready. The modified ships gathered near the Proxima station, the next likely target of the Voidborn offensive. On the command deck of the flagship, human advisors stood alongside Alliance officers. The atmosphere was tense but hopeful. Voidborn fleet detected, announced the sensor officer. 53 vessels approaching from multiple vectors. They're using their new dispersed attack formation, Susan observed, studying the tactical display. Just as we predicted. Commander Zix Tull, who had been given command of the defense force, turned to her. Recommend response. Without hesitation, Susan outlined a counter-strategy that broke every conventional rule of Alliance combat doctrine. It involved splitting their forces, using varying shield frequencies, and employing erratic movement patterns. The Alliance officers looked uncertain, but Zixtool nodded. Implement Captain Miller's strategy. The battle that followed would later be recorded as a turning point in the war. The modified Alliance vessels moved with unexpected speed and agility. Their weapons struck with unprecedented power and accuracy. Their communications remained secure despite Voidborn attempts to jam them. Most importantly, their tactics confused and divided the enemy. The Voidborn, accustomed to the predictable responses of Alliance forces, found themselves unable to adapt to the chaotic human-inspired strategy. They're breaking formation, reported a tactical officer, disbelief in his voice. 3 enemy vessels destroyed, 5 more heavily damaged. As the battle progressed, the advantage shifted steadily to the Alliance. For the first time in the long conflict, the Voidborn were in full retreat. When the last enemy ship fled the battlefield, a cheer went up throughout the flagship. Alliance officers embraced their human advisors, old prejudices forgotten in the joy of victory. Commander Zix Tool approached Daniel and Susan as the celebration continued around them. For the first time since they had known him, the Naxian was smiling. It seems, he said quietly, that the Alliance has much to learn from humanity. This is just the beginning, Daniel replied. Together, we can win this war. The commander nodded, but his expression grew serious. Yes, but I wonder what comes after. The Alliance has never faced a change like this, some fear where it might lead. Susan understood his concern. Change is always frightening, she said. But sometimes it's necessary for survival. As news of the victory spread throughout Alliance space, humans found themselves suddenly in high demand. The species that had been dismissed as primitive just months earlier was now viewed as a source of vital innovation. The Voidborn Collective had made a fatal error. They had expected the Alliance to respond as they always had before. They never anticipated that humans would change the rules of the game. 1 year had passed since the Battle of Proxima Station. The victory there had marked the beginning of a new era for the Galactic Alliance. With human innovation driving their military technology forward, the Alliance had won battle after battle against the Voidborn Collective. Now representatives from all Alliance species gathered in the Great Assembly Hall on Nexus Prime. The massive chamber hummed with conversation as over 2,000 delegates found their seats. Today's session would address the future of human involvement in the Alliance. Daniel Hayes stood with the now expanded human delegation at the front of the chamber. At his side were Susan Miller, Paul Johnson, and Amanda Wright, the three who had helped turn the tide of the war. All four had been given special recognition for their contributions. "They're afraid of us," Amanda whispered, noting the nervous glances from some of the delegates. Daniel nodded slightly. Change is always frightening, especially for a civilization that has remained static for thousands of years. The hall fell, silent as the council leader rose to speak. The tall, golden-skinned alien raised his six-fingered hands for attention. "Today we consider a matter of great importance," he began. "The humans have helped us achieve military victories thought impossible just 1 year ago. Their unconventional approach to our technology has proven effective." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the assembly. However, the council leader continued, some members express concern about the rapid pace of change. Technologies and tactics that served us for millennia have been transformed in months. Some wonder if we are moving too quickly, too recklessly. Daniel listened carefully. The debate was not unexpected. Since humans had been given access to Alliance military technology, innovation had spread to other areas. Human scientists were suggesting improvements to medical equipment, transport systems, and even governance structures. The conservative elements of Alliance society were pushing back. Ambassador Krell spoke next. "The humans have been valuable allies, but perhaps their role should be limited now that the crisis has passed. We might return to our traditional approaches, incorporating only the most necessary human innovations." This suggestion drew support from many delegates, particularly those from older, more established species. Daniel exchanged glances with Susan. They had anticipated this reaction. Then Commander Zixtul stepped forward. The Naxian military leader had become an unexpected advocate for human involvement. "I once shared your fears," he admitted to the assembly. "The human approach seemed chaotic, unpredictable, even dangerous. But I have witnessed the results firsthand. While we maintained unchanged procedures for millennia, the Voidborn nearly defeated us. It was human adaptability that saved us." The commander paused, looking around the chamber. "Just yesterday, the Voidborn Supreme Collective requested peace negotiations. After centuries of conflict, they seek terms. This would not have happened without human involvement." This announcement caused a stir. The news of the peace offer had not yet been made public. The debate continued for hours. Some species argued for restricting human influence, while others advocated for even greater integration. The tension in the chamber grew as the discussion became more heated. Finally, Daniel asked for permission to address the assembly. The council leader reluctantly agreed. Daniel walked to the center of the chamber, feeling the weight of thousands of alien eyes upon him. He took a deep breath and began to speak. "For thousands of years, the Alliance has been a beacon of stability in the Kaiuar galaxy. You built incredible technologies and created peaceful cooperation between diverse species. These are remarkable achievements." He paused, looking around the vast chamber. "But stability became stagnation. When faced with an adaptive enemy, your unchanging procedures became a weakness. Humans don't have your history or your technological head start. What we do have is adaptability. We question, we experiment, we fail, and try again." Daniel gestured to his fellow humans. "We don't want to replace your ways with ours. We want to combine our strengths, your stability and our innovation, your experience and our fresh perspective. Not just in military matters, but in everything we do together." He turned to face the council directly. "I propose a new approach to galactic defense, a collaborative system where each species contributes their unique perspective. The Draxians have remarkable pattern recognition. The Florans can process multiple problems simultaneously. The Naxians excel at implementation, and humans, we think outside established patterns." The hall was silent as the delegates considered his words. Then Paul Johnson stepped forward with diagrams of a new type of ship engine that combined Alliance technology with human design principles. This hybrid drive represents what we can achieve together, Paul explained. It's 40% more efficient than previous designs and can be retrofitted to existing vessels. Susan Miller presented next, outlining a tactical training program that combined Alliance discipline with human creativity. We've established an interspecies tactical academy, she said. Officers from all Alliance species train together, learning from each other's strengths. Amanda Wright described the new communication network she had developed, which had transformed information sharing throughout Alliance space. By combining quantum entanglement with adaptive encryption, we've created a system that's both secure and flexible, she said. As the presentations continued, Daniel watched the faces of the delegates. Many showed interest, others remained skeptical, but all were engaged. The conversation had shifted from fear of change to discussion of possibilities. When the formal session ended, small groups of delegates and humans gathered throughout the chamber, continuing the debate in more personal terms. Daniel found himself approached by a group of younger Alliance scientists, eager to discuss collaborative projects. Across the room, he spotted Commander Zix Tool speaking with the council leader. The commander caught his eye and gave a slight nod. The debate was far from over, but the tide was turning. Later that evening, Daniel stood with his friends on a balcony overlooking the capital city. The lights of countless buildings stretched to the horizon, a testament to what the Alliance had built over millennia. "Do you think they'll accept our proposal?" Amanda asked. "Some will, some won't," Daniel replied. "Change doesn't happen overnight, especially for species that live for centuries. But it has begun," Susan noted. "I overheard 2 Draxian engineers discussing modifications to their shield designs. They were actually arguing about which approach would be better." "That wouldn't have happened a year ago," Paul laughed, "and I've got 3 different species asking me to review their engine specifications. They're competing to see who can create the most efficient design." Commander Zix Tool joined them on the balcony, his tall figure silhouetted against the city lights. "The council is still deliberating," he informed them. "But I believe they will accept your proposal, at least in part. That's all we can ask for," Daniel said. "A chance to work together." The commander's 4 eyes studied them thoughtfully. "When you first arrived, we saw you as primitive, barely worth noticing. We allowed you limited access to our technology, as a courtesy, never imagining you could improve upon it. A natural assumption for a civilization that hadn't seen significant change in thousands of years," Susan said diplomatically. Zix Tool made the rumbling sound that passed for Naxian laughter. "Indeed, we learned our lesson the hard way. Never underestimate humans, especially when it comes to military technology." As the night deepened, the 5 of them looked out at the stars visible above the city's glow. Somewhere out there, the Voidborn were preparing for peace negotiations. Alliance worlds were implementing human-inspired innovations, and thousands of species were beginning to question traditions that had remained unchanged for millennia. The universe would never be the same. All because the Alliance had made one simple mistake. They had let humans near their military technology, and that mistake had saved them all.